Next up, we have Benet Devereux talking about biological inspirations for roguelike mechanics. Another one I am personally very excited for. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Hi. Okay, not sure what's going on here, but hello. My name's Sonat Uzun. I work as a software engineer, and in my spare time, I putt around making little games, or walking in the woods taking pictures of slime molds, or playing the lute. Today, I'd like to speak briefly about my experiences in looking for biological inspiration for game mechanics with a focus on roguelikes. And I can't advance my slides for some reason. That's great. Seriously? Okay. Here we go. So this is the passage from Charles Darwin that provided a title from this talk. Sorry about the delay. And it's a good one for this milieu, not just because it's a passionate meditation about the diversity of life on Earth, but also like the emergent properties of that diversity, that the complexity comes from the interaction of agents that are following simple principles. And also, you can kind of flip this on its head and say, well, let's put complexity from simplicity as a design goal, which in a way, I think turns this into a bit of a manifesto for procedural generation. In other words, biology is roguelike. So this all came about because I wanted to make a roguelike game and learn a particular engine, which happened to be Rot.js. And I like tardigrades. And I decided to make the PC in my game a tardigrade, and I wanted that design choice to be a meaningful one. And so I wanted like the mechanics and the narrative to kind of be tardigrade inspired. And since it's a pretty small game, very small game, the mechanic that I picked was the tardigrade's most famous one, its ability to go dormant and survive extreme situations. And the goal became survival, like surviving for a set amount of time, in extreme situations. And the rest of the design involved generating various extreme situations that need to be survived. And this experience got me thinking in more general terms about taking strategies from nature, from organisms, and using them to build game mechanics and, artifacts and NPCs in your games and the like. It's commonplace that life on Earth has been, developing its survival strategies for close to 4 billion years, pretty mature code base. So there should be plenty of inspiration there, Now, if you're going to draw from that, that's a large set of things dealing with a vast host of situations, and not even the largest game can't present every single situation that some real organism might encounter. And so to make this work, you have to do some abstraction. And a couple of ways to do that are consider what resources matter to different actors in the game, what the different sensory modalities available to actors are, and what interactions between actors and with their environments are even possible. Briefly, the mechanics in the game need to make these strategies make sense, and the choice to use one or not be meaningful. Not useless and not a button that you just keep mashing. My goal in this investigation was basically doing some philosophical induction. So I dug through this catalog of strategies, which is found on this website, asknature.org, and pick some and think about how they could be abstracted, into game terms. And so convince myself, and hopefully you, that this is a fruitful approach, and maybe even start to extract some principles and heuristics. So for what's about to follow, I do want to provide several caveats here. I've generated some ideas, and it's really the generation of ideas that that I'm presenting on. I'm not making any claims that these, are original, that they've never been used before, or that they're very good. They would still need to go through a whole process of refining and filtering. But the process of creating and documenting them was a quick and fun one. So if you go to asknature.org, they've got a pretty rich taxonomy of strategies. Now, their target audience is designers and engineers who want to apply biomimicry to solve problems in the real world. And my focus, at least for this investigation, was creating problems in an imaginary world. So instead of that rich taxonomy, I've got this fairly simple set of buckets / axes. And I say axes because you could definitely see how some of them might overlap, like defense and deception, navigation and resource gathering, like these things might share, might be reflected in a single, behavior. First example, Cataglyphus fortis is a species of desert ant found in Tunisia. It smells in stereo, using both antennae for smell. Gives them more precise spatialization on where a particular scent is coming from. And so while they're out foraging, they use this along with sight to keep a mental map of where they've been so that they can find their way home. And also the smelling helps them with the task of foraging itself. So this is an example of something which kind of combines navigation and resource gathering. Cool fact, the thing that they're foraging for is generally other insects. They forage in the hottest part of the day, which they can handle, but many other insects can't. And so, they're looking for the ones who couldn't take the heat. Okay, so what are some possible ideas that you might draw from this? And a pretty obvious one is, say you create a smell map, sensory modality, say overlaid on the visual map, or instead of it, but that's getting weirder. But that's got very different notions of field of vision and the way that scents mask each other, interact, fade over time, or can be like deliberately washed off, say, are very different. And these two illustrations kind of are showing that in action. So in the illustration on the left, player character is able to smell the acid from a green dragon lurking in the far corridor that it can't see. But in the second one, because there's a fresh smelly corpse in the room, it can't smell the dragon on the other side, and so might walk into a dangerous situation. It's not good. Example number 2, cone snails. These are a group of predatory sea snails found worldwide, and they all have this ability to shoot out a proboscis to the prey that they're attacking, and use that to shoot a customized harpoon-like tooth into the prey, and that delivers venom. And it's always got a supply of these teeth, which is weird and cool. And this is clearly like an attack defense kind of strategy. Some species, not all of them, are able to actually, mix and match a cocktail of venoms that they're going to deliver for a specific target. And you may ask, are any of them fatal to humans? And some definitely are. So if you see anything in the ocean that looks like it was generated with a cellular automaton, please do not pick it up. So lots of creatures have short-range distance attacks. That's fine. Not very novel. But I think the combination of venom idea has more legs. Whether that's something that a monster can do, and that's what I've illustrated, or the player is able to choose that as part of a special attack. And in this illustration, we have a cone snail. Somehow it's in a dungeon and not underwater. Don't know how that happened. And it's delivering not only a paralyzing toxin, but also the cocktail includes white dragon venom, which targets this PC's vulnerability to cold. And here's a more familiar creature, the anglerfish, star of stage and screen. And I have one here. And most people are pretty familiar with the bioluminescent lure that it attracts prey with. What was news to me when I was doing this investigation that's quite cool is they have very, very non-reflective skin, completely black, none more black. So it can be very hard for prey to see the fish, even with the light of the lure, before it's too late for them. So, my disclaimer about originality, having an invisible monster with a lure a few squares away has probably been done before, but it's still a neat idea. A little nastier than a mimic because you don't even have to touch the lure. And in this illustration here, because this creature knows what's what, the lure looks like money. Other cool property of the lure, which I didn't come up with use for immediately, is that it can make it harder for prey animals to see in the dark. And if you have dark adaptation as a game mechanic, that's also something that's potentially interesting. All right. So as I said, quick and fun to just browse through some of these strategies and, spend some time, thinking about how you could put them in a game world. And at least that was straightforward for ideas that use different sensory modalities and modes of interaction, and you're not trying to put your new idea into an existing game that has opinions. A lot of the ideas that I looked at, I needed to discard because they really rely a lot on form and material properties and require a pretty rich physics engine, which I think is a whole other can of worms. Interested in thinking about it, but haven't yet. Other unexplored avenues, really digging into constraints on resources that I talked about at the beginning, but none of the examples really illustrated. And of course, complex collective behavior of organisms. I think that's a really interesting area. All right. I would like to extend my thanks, first of all, to all of you for listening, to Amy Kaufman-Phillips for teaching me about biomimicry, denizens of the Whetstone Discord server for their encouragement and inspiration over the past couple of years, and Roguelike Celebration for the opportunity to speak, and the committee's endless hours making everything work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was very fun. I learned new things about anglerfish, and I love cone snails. So, excellent. Does your anglerfish have a name? It's very cute.
I don't know. Full disclosure, I borrowed the anglerfish from my wife.
I see.
She may have a name for it, but I don't know what it is.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that lots of just discussion in chat. I think people really liked even the anglerfish idea. That combination of a mimic is kind of familiar, but a mimic with a lure is an extra layer that is intriguing. Maybe overlaps nicely with the trap discussion. Got a little bit.
Yeah.
Heads up that this is a trap. So excellent. Well then, thank you very much, and we will move on to our last speaker for this block,